He was the breakout star of HBO's biggest drama, Fame, Fortune, Hollywood parties. It was all his. Then he smiled once at the wrong moment, and they buried his career like he never existed. I grew up in a cramped apartment on Chicago's South Side, and nobody named Jake Morrow, dreaming of spotlights while waiting tables at a greasy diner. Acting was my escape. Community theater gigs, bit parts in local commercials, anything to keep the dream alive. I was 28, scraping by, when I auditioned for a small role in an HBO drama called Midnight Streets, a gritty cop show that was already buzzing. I figured I'd get a line or two, maybe a day's pay. Instead, I nailed the audition somehow. My raw delivery as a jittery informant clicked with the director. 2 weeks later, I was on set, my heart pounding as cameras rolled. Laura, my girlfriend of 3 years, cheered from the sidelines, her eyes wide with pride. The show exploded in 2010. Midnight Streets became a cultural phenomenon, and my character, a snitch with a heart, turned into a fan favorite. Overnight, I went from serving hash browns to signing autographs outside the studio. My face was on billboards along the 101, my name trending on Twitter. We moved to a sleek condo in West Hollywood, all glass walls and city views, paid for with my first big check, $150,000 for a season. Laura quit her barista job, and we started hitting red carpet premieres, me in tailored suits, her in designer dresses. I'd pose for paparazzi, grinning, feeling like I'd made it. Ethan, my younger brother, who'd crash on my couch back in Chicago, flew out to visit, snapping pics of me with the listers. "You're a star, Jake," he'd say, and I'd laugh, soaking it in. By 2011, I was Hollywood's new darling. My salary jumped to $500,000 per season, and I landed endorsement deals, luxury watches, at Tequila brand. We upgraded to a Beverly Hills mansion, 6 bedrooms with a pool and a home theater where I'd host after parties with directors and supermodels. I bought a Maserati, cruised Sunset Boulevard, and dated actresses whose names lit up marquees. Laura loved it. Private chefs, yacht trips to Catalina, vacations in Aspen. I'd wake up to scripts piling up, agents begging me to pick projects. One night, at a Vanity Fair party, Quentin Tarantino slapped my back, calling me the next big thing. I was invincible, the guy who'd gone from obscurity to hailing cabs for Spielberg. Ethan moved to LA, managing my social media, and Laura talked about starting a family. Life was a high I never wanted to come down from, but the cracks started in 2012. The 3rd season of Midnight Streets was grueling. 14-hour shoots, constant rewrites. I was exhausted, popping at her all to keep up. Laura noticed, her voice tight one night. "Jake, you're burning out. Slow down." I brushed her off, saying, "This is the price of fame, babe." The pressure built, and I started drinking more, leaning on whiskey to unwind. Ethan warned me too. "You're changing, bro," he said, scrolling through hate tweets about my slurred red carpet interviews. I laughed it off, telling myself I could handle it. The show's ratings were still sky high, and I was booking a lead in a summer blockbuster. My agent called me untouchable, and I believed him, riding the wave of my own hype. That wave crashed on a warm June night in 2012. We were at the Emmy Awards, Midnight Streets up for Best Drama. I was presenting an award, my hands sweaty, my head foggy from a pre-show drink. The teleprompter glitched, and I froze, then smirked a nervous, awkward grin that stretched too long. The audience laughed, thinking it was a bit, but the cameras caught it, and the clip went viral. Jake Morrow's creepy smile trended, memes flooded Instagram, and critics tore into me. The next day, the studio called. My character was being written off. Midnight Streets, creative differences, they said. My agent dropped me, the blockbuster deal fell through, and endorsement contracts vanished. I went from hailing cabs for Spielberg to being a punchline in 24 hours. The fallout was brutal. By July 2012, I was out of work, my phone silent except for tabloid reporters sniffing for dirt. Laura stuck around at first, but the strain showed. She'd cry in our mansion's guest room, saying, "This isn't the life I signed up for, Jake." I tried to reassure her, promising a comeback, but the gigs dried up. Theater companies, where I'd started, wouldn't touch me, too risky, they said. One director offered me a job hauling sets for a community play in Santa Monica, paying $50 a day. I took it, hauling plywood in the same jeans I'd worn to Emmy parties. The irony stinging. Paparazzi snap pics, and headlines screamed, from red carpet to roadie. Ethan tried to help, posting upbeat updates, but even he couldn't spin it. My Maserati sat in the garage, repossessed. And we moved to a dingy apartment in Koreatown. Laura couldn't take it. In September 2012, she left, packed her bags while I was at a set hauling gig, leaving a note. I loved the star, not the struggle. Goodbye. I came home to an empty closet, her perfume still lingering, and broke down on the kitchen floor. Ethan moved back to Chicago, saying he needed space, his voice heavy with disappointment. I was alone, my savings dwindling, my name a liability. I stopped answering calls, stopped leaving the apartment, letting the curtains stay drawn. The industry had turned its back, and the silence was louder than any applause I'd ever heard. I'd scroll through old clips of midnight streets, watching my younger self, wondering where that guy went. The year dragged on, 2013 a blur of rejection. I'd audition for off-Broadway plays, only to be laughed out of rooms. One casting director said, "We can't risk the smirk factor." I took more set hauling jobs, my hands calloused again, my pride in tatters. Friends stopped texting, and the Hollywood invites dried up. I'd sit in dive bars, nursing cheap beer, overhearing whispers about that Morrow guy. The weight of it hit hard. I'd lost my career, my girl, my brother's faith. One night, drunk and desperate, I scribbled ideas on a napkin, a story about a fallen actor finding redemption through art. It wasn't a plan, just a flicker of something I'd forgotten. That flicker grew. In early 2014, I started writing, pouring my shame and hope into a play called Shadow on the Stage. I used a pseudonym, Elliot Gray, hoping to shield myself from judgment. The story mirrored mine, star's rise and fall, his quiet fight to reclaim his soul. I sent it to a small theater in Seattle, expecting nothing. Months later, they called. They wanted to stage it. Rehearsals began, and reviews trickled in, calling it wry and haunting. I watched from the back row and recognized, my heart pounding as actors brought my words to life. The place sold out, buzz growing, but no one knew it was mine. I'd found a way back, not with fame, but with something quieter, something real. The success of Shadow on the Stage spread by mid-2014. Seattle theaters booked it, then Portland, then a run in New York off-Broadway. Critics praised Elliot Gray's debut, speculating about his identity. Some said he was a reclusive genius, others a washed-up actor hiding in plain sight. I stayed in the shadows, attending shows incognito, a hoodie pulled low. The royalties trickled in, enough to move out of Koreatown to a modest place in Silver Lake. But I didn't touch the spotlight. Ethan called one night, his voice softer. "Heard about this play, Jake. Sounds like you." I deflected, saying it was coincidence, but he didn't push. Laura reached out once, a text asking if I was okay, but I didn't reply. Too much had changed. I started writing more short stories and another play, all under Elliot Gray. Theaters kept calling, and I'd send scripts, letting directors handle the rest. It wasn't the glitz of Hollywood, but it was mine, my voice, my redemption. I'd sit in audiences, watching strangers cry over lines I'd written about my own fall, and feel a strange peace. The industry still shunned me. My name stayed toxic, but I didn't care. I'd walk past billboards for new HBO shows, my old face replaced by fresher ones, and feel nothing. The smirk that ruined me was a distant memory, replaced by the quiet satisfaction of creating without the glare of fame. One evening in July 2014, I sat in a darkened theater in San Francisco. Shadow on the Stage playing to a packed house. The final scene, where the actor turns away from the spotlight, mirrored my choice. As the curtain fell, applause erupted, and I slipped out, the cool night air hitting my face. I walked to a bus stop, hands in my pockets, the city lights blurring past. No one knew me. No one cared. And for the first time in years, that felt right. My career was gone, my love lost, but I'd found a way to tell my story, to leave something behind. I stepped into the shadows, ready to let Elliot Gray carry on without me. The journey to that night had been a slow unraveling. After Laura left, I tried to claw back into acting, hitting every audition I could find. One producer in LA laughed, saying, "Jake, you're a meme now, stick to hauling sets." I'd nod, swallow the humiliation, and carry another backdrop, my muscles aching where they once flexed for cameras. Ethan sent occasional texts checking in, but the distance grew. "You okay, bro?" he'd ask, and I'd lie saying yes, when all I felt was a hollow ache. The mansion was a memory. The Maserati a repo lot ghost, and my bank account dwindled. 200s. I sold my Emmy nomination plaque on eBay for $300. The buyer mocking me in the comments. Writing became my lifeline. I'd sit in that Koreatown apartment, the hum of traffic outside, and let the words flow. Shadow on the stage wasn't just a play, it was my confession, my way of facing the smirk that ended me. I'd relive that Emmy moment, the glitch, the laughter, the viral shame, and pour it onto the page. The pseudonym was a shield, but also a release. Letting Elliot Gray take the credit felt like shedding the weight of Jake Morrow. When the first review called it a masterpiece of quiet despair, I cried alone, the tears mixing with the cheap whiskey I'd been nursing. The play's success didn't bring back the old life. Hollywood stayed closed, agents ignored my calls, and casting calls listed me as do not contact, but I didn't need it anymore. I'd watch midnight streets reruns late at night, seeing my younger self, and feel a pang, but not regret. The industry had turned, but I turned too, towards something I could control. Ethan came to a show in Chicago, sitting beside me, his hand on my shoulder. "Proud of you, Jake," he said. And I nodded, unable to speak. Laura's text lingered unanswered, a ghost of what we'd been. I let it go, let her go, focusing on the next script, the next shadow to step into. The San Francisco night marked the end of my old self. After the curtain fell, I didn't look back. I rode the bus home, the city's neon fading, and started planning another play, a comedy this time, something lighter. Under Elliot Gray, theaters kept booking Shadow on the stage, and I'd send notes to directors and signed, guiding the vision. My Silver Lake place was small, but it had a desk where I'd write, the clack of my keyboard my new applause. I'd pass billboards of new stars, their smiles pristine, and feel no envy, just a quiet acceptance. The smirk that ruined me had led me here, to a life where my story lived on, even if my name didn't. I thought about calling Ethan, telling him the truth about Elliot Gray, but I held off. Let him wonder, let the world wonder. The money from the play was modest, enough for rent and a decent meal, but it wasn't about wealth anymore. It was about proving I could still create, still matter, without the cameras or the crowds. One day, a critic speculated Elliot Gray might be me, citing parallels in the play, but I stayed silent. The industry could speculate I'd already walked away. I sat at my desk that July night, the clock ticking past midnight, and wrote the first line of my next work. Letting the shadows wrap around me like an old friend. The final months of 2014 were a quiet retreat. I'd attend Shadow on the stage openings in different cities, always in the back, always unnoticed. The play's run extended, and I'd hear audiences gasp at the moment the actor turns away, mirroring my own choice to step back. I'd leave before the bows, slipping into the night. The applause fading behind me. Ethan kept in touch, his texts warmer, and I promised to visit Chicago soon, maybe tell him everything over beers. Laura's silence became a distant echo, her departure a closed chapter. I wrote more, building a catalog under Elliot Gray, each piece a piece of me I'd reclaimed. One evening in December, I watched the play in Minneapolis, the snow falling outside. The final line, "The stage is dark, but the story lives," hit me hard. I stood, pulled my coat tight, and walked out, the cold biting my face. No one followed, no one knew. I took a bus back to my hotel, the city lights blurring, and felt a strange peace. My career as Jake Morrow was over, cancelled by a smirk, but Elliot Gray was thriving. I'd lost the glitz, the love, the fame, but I'd found a way to tell my truth. As the bus rolled on, I leaned back, ready to let the shadows keep me, my story playing out in theaters I'd never claim.